Hi, Amber. I'm Ezelle from the upcoming. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for chatting with us today. And congratulations on having your film featured at the BFI London Film Festival. How does that feel for you?
It feels great. It feels like a little bit of a whirlwind because I'm just here for 2 days, but I'm excited. The screening's tonight, so.
Perhaps you could kick off, for those that haven't seen it, if you could give us a little background to the story. What's it about? What made you want to tell this and bring this to screen?
One thing that I would say is that it doesn't really have a story because all along the way, when I was like, it took me 6 years to make the film, and people kept saying like, "What's the story? What's the story? What's the story?" And like, I didn't really have one, but I had energetic transmissions that I wanted to explore, and I had like concepts. So I can talk about that a little bit. I guess it's about an artist who's quite important in the world of performance art, and specifically in Latin America, in the Americas, I would say, but really all over the world. And his name is Guillermo Gomez Peña, and it's also about his performance troupe La Pocha Nostra. So that is what you could say it's like about, but it's also dealing with concepts of borders in terms of like physical borders between countries, but also conceptual borders between people. And most importantly, in a way, or most interestingly for me, the border between director and protagonist, and between camera and subject. So it really tries to like subvert borders or think about borders in different kinds of ways. In a way, I guess the description is like it clears the border because instead of a line in my film, Guillermo says the border is a spiral. Yeah, kind of.
And I think the concept of borders appeared in many of your films actually before, hasn't it? So I guess there's other meanings for that for you. Um, so what was it like working with Guillermo Gomez Peña and his troupe? How was that kind of working relationship?
Well, it was a 6 year relationship, so it's like a long time. And at first, Guillermo and I were friends, and I was part of his community. So working together wasn't like I was just meeting him for the first time. I had already been staying up until 7 in the morning at like performance parties at his house in Mexico City, like blindfolded, like touching like other bodies. I mean, it's just like it was kind of, or like not, I mean, not in a performative way, or like crawling on his floor, like screaming at whatever, like we had some wild parties. He has very interesting gatherings of artists. So I was already like in that scene, and I guess I just described things that weren't, yeah, maybe you can cut, I don't know, like those things aren't exactly what the parties were like, but so I was already there. And so when we started working together, it was kind of an extension. Like it was, he's very into, as you can see from the film, he's into play and humor to really get at like important political topics. So playfulness is a big part of it. And throughout the film, the skeleton of the film is the dynamic between him and I, and this question around representation. And I'm like, in my performative self, I'm like the naked director. So in terms of the naked director, that concept is really about destabilizing the idea of vulnerability or like power and director, right? The naked body for me isn't something particularly vulnerable, but it symbolizes vulnerability. So I thought it was interesting to be embodied in my body as a symbol of vulnerability while I'm directing, and it complicates these ideas. And so we played with those things. We also played with like another great scene is like when we're both talking like really bad, like gringo accent Spanish, which anybody that speaks Spanish knows that my accent, and I always feel ashamed because I'm like, if there's Spanish speakers, like this isn't how I speak Spanish, it's a joke, whereas non-Spanish speakers can't tell that I'm like speaking. So that shoot came about at like 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like we had been shooting all day. So there was a lot of playfulness in our work together and a lot of intensity.
And I think obviously shooting this over 6 years, you had an awful lot of footage. Yeah. How did you kind of condense that into your film?
Well, I had so much help. I had two editors that I worked with who are just amazing. The first editor is a filmmaker themselves. Their name is Simone Patu. They helped me to just like think through like what we wanted to use. And then the next editor, Miguel Schwerdfinger, who's like a master, and agreed to work with me because he liked the film. He doesn't do documentaries. He was the editor for like Lucrecia Martel and like edited Zama and The Headless One. Like he's really like, but he liked the film. He thought it was sort of irreverent and he likes that. So me and him just like, but he's a master editor. I usually edit all of my work. This is the first film I've worked with an editor on ever. I would say though that it was helpful to work with someone because it's like, it was so much and over so many years. And also the other thing is that this film is from another time in all of our lives. Most of the footage was shot in 2017. So when I watch it, when Guillermo watches it, when all the protagonists watch it, it's like things have changed. And that's interesting too.
I agree. And what do you hope that viewers will take away from watching this?
What I really hope in my most naive of hearts is that people have some sort of context, and I could even say inspiration, to keep fighting and resisting the things that feel unjust in the world, because Guillermo has been doing that for over 40 years. I'm a professor, so like my students are sort of like like they don't, that generation, they almost think that like nothing came before, or they don't learn, and I guess it's like I'm a teacher, so I'm like, but I think it's important. It gives us like an embrace to like understand that people came before and have been fighting injustice for like so long, and that instant gratification isn't the way that it's like sometimes you just have to keep going. So I hope people just feel like they can keep going, like, oh, this. And at the end of the film, even though it's in Spanish, so it's intentionally like for Spanish speakers, there's a long, beautiful, but it's like a oration of all the artists that have come before and died and like done their work. So it's also about being an artist and like all of us and like in community just doing it, like people that are famous, people that aren't, never did anything in their lives, like got a show but kept working. So I guess it's about persistence.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your time in London.
Yeah, thank you so
very
much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.